It's exciting. We're unsure of what calls we're going to be responding to, and the fact that you can make a difference in somebody's life at the end of the day is a big, reward.
Tracy Powers is on the move. She's a paramedic supervisor in Manchester, New Hampshire. Her day begins with the sound of an alarm. She and her crew pack up and respond to a call. They find an elderly woman who fell in her home, but she'll be okay. By the end of the day, however, Tracy will likely save a life.
Overdoses have increased greatly since I started. This was not something that we've seen. They were here and there, but now we go to multiple during shifts. We might have one a week, and now we could have up to 3 or 4 a day.
First responders carry plenty of naloxone. Commonly known by the brand name Narcan, it's a nasal spray that is used to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. And it works. But as lives are spared, a hidden problem emerges.
We were dispatched for a possible overdose seizure. When we arrived on scene, Manchester Fire was already on scene administering Narcan to the patients. There was drug paraphernalia in the room. When we got to her, the Narcan was given and the patient immediately started to seize, meaning that there's probably an amphetamine on board. We see the side effects of a seizure from a spice overdose, but we're also wondering if the fact that she was hypoxic for a period of time, lack of oxygen to the brain, that may have caused this seizure. The signs and symptoms, what we were seeing, weren't good, and it appeared to be possible brain injury due to hypoxia.
New Hampshire is not alone in its struggle with substance use disorder. In 2018, nearly 70,000 Americans died of an overdose. There is, however, a bit of good news. More people now survive an overdose because of awareness and better medicine. But what happens to those people who walk away? I'm Jennifer Rooks, and on this episode of Roads to Recovery, we'll look at the science and personal stories of overdose and brain injury.
I've seen people who we woke up with Narcan and, they went to the hospital and they were discharged hours later, and then they went and did it again a couple hours after that. We've definitely had the same patient a couple times in a single 12-hour shift. And at that point, it's like, where's the disconnect? Where is that? It can't just all be this addiction aspect. There's got to be some sort of cognitive disconnect.
There is a cognitive disconnect. It begins when breathing stops.
An overdose, an opioid overdose in particular, suppresses the respiratory system, your breathing. And your breathing either slows down or stops to where the brain is not getting enough energy. It's not getting enough blood. So when you stop breathing, the brain stops getting the blood that it needs, and that causes you to lose consciousness. And we know that denying the brain of oxygen can very quickly turn into cell death.
The result is often brain injury, but it's a different kind of brain injury than most. The more common brain injury, traumatic brain injury, is caused by a blow to the head. This, called anoxic and hypoxic brain injury, happens when not enough oxygen reaches the brain. John Corrigan, a researcher on the topic, explains.
The thing to understand is that the brain is like a hog for oxygen in our body. For its small mass, the amount of oxygen it wants and needs to do what it does is way out of proportion. And so while the whole body is being denied oxygen, the bigger users of oxygen are what are more likely to be affected. And in the brain itself, then, some of the big users of oxygen are what will sustain the most damage. So we know that includes, for instance, the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that's involved in creating new memories. We know that the cerebellum which is in the back, and it's a big user, and it's very involved in balance and coordination. But we also know that some of the connections from the midbrain to the frontal areas are also affected disproportionately by the loss of oxygen. And so we get, with an opioid overdose, some of the same problems that are characteristic, that are kind of the fingerprint of a traumatic brain injury.